Yep. The affirmative team is looking at the North Korean propaganda and assuming that we need to make a trigger-happy decision of deploying weapons into South Korea. When we really look at the situation with North Korea and South Korea, we see that this is entirely unnecessary, and actually South Korea doesn't want it. My partner will be talking about some of the negative consequences that will come about from this, but I'm just going to go on the case and show that North Korea is actually not a legitimate threat, and we do not need to put this system in place in this area. Starting off actually with their subpoint B under their harm of North Korean threat. Basically, they said that North Korea is willing to attack South Korea. Few responses to this. First response is propaganda. Propaganda. The only evidence they quoted under this was North Korean propaganda talking about how they were going to attack, saying that they were going to turn Seoul into a sea of fire and they were going to invade South Korea in a matter of days. However, North Korean news sources have also said that they have landed their dictator on the sun, and they have discovered a unicorn lair in their country. This is the source that the affirmative team is trusting for they're resting their entire case on and the entire risk. Put simply, North Korea, this is basically an exaggeration. The capabilities of North Korea are far short of this, and the only evidence they have to support it is North Korean propaganda. However, when we look at actually the practical implications of what North Korea would really want to do, we can see that there's no reason for them to want to invade. My second response is nothing to gain. Nothing to gain. Now, if they were to attack South Korea, they really have nothing to gain, according to Andrei Lenkov on April 9th of 2013. Now, he's a specialist in Korean studies and a professor in Korean history. And he said, quote, people who talk about the imminent possibility of war seldom pose the question, what would North Korea's leadership get from unleashing war that they are likely to lose in weeks, if not days? If they strike Japan, the United States, or South Korea with nuclear weapons, they could not save themselves from ultimate defeat. The use of nuclear or other terror weapons would make certain to invite overwhelming retaliation, and delivering North Korea's decision would make decision makers into fiery oblivion. End quote. Now, North Korea may seem ridiculous, it may seem odd sometimes, but the leaders simply they do have some kind of strategy behind them. They're not going to simply invade when they know that they're going to be attacked back. They have nothing to gain from launching nuclear weapons at South Korea. They have nothing to gain really at all. So my third response to this is confusing on purpose. Confusing on purpose. The reason they're being confusing is because they're trying to give the aura of unpredictability. They're trying to present themselves as being a bit more powerful country on the international community than they really are. This is according to George Friedman on April 9th of 2013. He's the CEO of Strategic Forecasting Incorporated, so a defense think tank and a PhD in government from Cornell University, so a very credible person on this issue. He said, quote, the North Koreans portrayed themselves as crazy, working to appear unpredictable, and giving extravagant threats and seeming to welcome a war. As in poker, so with the North. You can play games against many sorts of players who are those who truly understand the odds and those who are just playing for fun, but never ever play poker against a nut, end quote. Basically what it's saying is that North Korea is just playing itself up. They're trying to show, like in a game of poker, they're bluffing basically. They're not actually a threat, and we can see there's no reason that they'd actually want to invade South Korea, and there's nothing they'd have to gain from it. Now, I talked about it a little bit under my second response here, but in response to subpoint C of current defense failed, my response to this is mutually assured destruction. This is under subpoint C, and my response is mutually assured destruction. If they were to attack South Korea in any way, the United States would instantly retaliate. If they attack with nuclear, we would retaliate with nuclear and completely wipe them off the map. Now, while their leaders, as I said, do seem odd, they're not blatantly stupid. They're not going to make this kind of ridiculous decision, and they know it keeps them safe. They know that they can't provoke the United States to that level, so they're not going to attack South Korea. So finally, to talk about this powerful arsenal, I'll put subpoint A. Now, they said basically that this is a warning. That they said that they have this powerful arsenal. A couple responses. The first response is a warning, not an attack. A warning, not an attack. Now, actually, this arsenal is more of a warning, and anything that they've done is warning South Korea not to provoke them. They haven't actually shown that they're going to attack. According to the Huffington Post on February 12th of 2013, quote, with nuclear negotiations stalled, North Korea forged ahead making missiles designed to reach U.S. stores and work towards building a bomb small enough to mount on it. Less with an actual attack in mind, but more to brandish as a warning for its wartime foe, end quote. They're merely trying to warn us, basically trying to play themselves up as big, but they don't have the intention of attacking. Even when we look back at the affirmative team's evidence, they haven't really talked about how they're going to attack. The only situation is if we provoke them, and Parker will be talking about exactly how we are provoking them. So only if we provoke them is an attack going to happen. Right now, we're not provoking them. The status quo is stable. My second response to this is no proof of arsenal. No proof of arsenal. My partner asked Grace in cross-examination, so what do we know about their nuclear weapon? And she said they might have a detonated hydrogen bomb, they might not have. The fact of the matter is, we have no idea what their arsenal is. They've been claiming a lot of propaganda that they have a nuclear weapon. There's no proof that that's actually a risk, and that's definitely not a reason why we should be deploying defense and provoking North Korea right now. So now we've covered this issue that North Korea is really not posing a threat, and they're not going to attack South Korea. Let's look at what South Korea is thinking about this whole situation. This is a new solvency point. Solvency of South Korea does not want. South Korea does not want. Now, the affirmative team made it sound like this case is a really good idea for South Korea. It's a really great missile defense system. Regardless of whether how successful the system is, South Korea has not once asked the United States for the system. Subpoint A of this solvency point is they're deliberating. Now, South Korea definitely knows about the system. Right now, they're actually deliberating on whether they want the system or not, according to the New York Times on March 17th of 2015. Quote, South Korean analysts said that Seoul's caution on the issue reflected its growing sense on being squeezed between a traditional ally and a bigger trading partner. For South Korea, the U.S. deployment of THAAD is a rose it wants to pick, said a senior fellow at the Institute for Peace and Cooperation in Seoul. But roses have thorns, end quote. What they're choosing between whether they want to move closer to the United States by accepting this deal, or move closer to China by not requesting it. So they're really deliberating the system right now. They haven't made a decision. So they want to make this decision. We should better stick with the status quo and let South Korea follow this, and try to build their plan and force the system upon South Korea. And the second response to this, or my subpoint B, is other system. Other system. Now, actually, South Korea, they're deliberating a bunch of other options. One system that they're talking about is they're building their own THAAD system instead of accepting one from the United States, according to globalsecurity.com, a major security news source, after 2014. Quote, during a meeting on a Defense Project Committee on June 11th of 2014, the government approved a plan to develop a long-range surface-to-air missile with its own technology. The LSAM, which is the South Korean missile, is expected to greatly increase the capacity of the Korean air and missile defense, allowing a multi-layered system. South Korea will develop its own missile system to intercept missiles higher than the altitude instead of adopting the THAAD system, end quote. So they're basically developing this system instead of accepting the THAAD because they don't want to accept the THAAD and risk their situation in this region. As the affirmative team themselves talked about, the situation is very tenuous. There's lots of political situations going on. South Korea wants to avoid a standoff. My final subpoint C, is will not pay. Will not pay. Now, South Korea also doesn't intend to pay for this system, according to Dr. Robert E. Kelly, an associate professor of international relations at the Department of Political Science and Diplomacy at the National University in South Korea. He said on April 13th of 2015, quote, Seoul has publicly insisted that it will not pay for the THAAD deployment, end quote. Under the affirmative team's case, they talk about how they're going to trade with South Korea, basically selling to South Korea. South Korea is in no way willing to pay for the system because they're afraid of the political situation there. They're kind of deliberating on it. It would be better right now to let South Korea deliberate and make a decision on their own, let them take the stance they want to take, instead of the United States implementing this system in a part of the world with extreme tensions. Furthermore, there is no harm and no pressing need to actually implement this system. Thank you, and I'm now ready for any questions that the affirmative team has on staff. I'm doing pretty good, actually.
Okay, awesome. So I just have a few questions for you, as you kind of imagine. All right, so you talked a lot about the arsenal that North Korea has. What is the purpose of the weapons cache?
Of weapons cache in North Korea? I mean, first of all, we have no idea how large the weapons cache is.
What's the purpose?
The purpose behind the weapons cache is to basically deter another attack. They've said multiple times that they will only attack if they're provoked, basically. They do not provoke them at all.
Okay, so North Korea believes that they're going to be attacked.
They believe that they might at some point be attacked. I mean, again, North Korea and South Korea are still technically at war. They're at an armistice. All right, yeah. So there's no war. They're still technically at war. They're still ready for war.
But you'd agree that North Korea is the aggressor in that relationship, right?
I would say that they haven't been aggressive for about the last 5 years.
So testing a hydrogen bomb isn't aggressive?
Testing a hydrogen bomb isn't aggressive directly against South Korea. They haven't bombed South Korea. They haven't attacked South Korea. They're just getting ready for the situation that South Korea might attack.
All right, but you'd agree that developing a weapons cache is a sign of aggression right there?
I mean, sure, and that's what South Korea would be doing under your plan.
Okay, but you'd agree that the THAAD system is purely for defense, right?
It's signifying a stronger relationship with the United States. North Korea is basically, they're not willing to attack unless the United States is going to provoke them, which is what your system would be doing by indicating that the United States...
You agree once again that the THAAD system's purpose is to defend South Korea. It has no offensive capabilities.
It is a defensive system.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, so you talked a lot about how North Korea craves the perception on the world stage as a world power.
Yes.
Why do they crave that perception?
They crave that perception because of the way that their leadership is set up. They want to have power. The way that they can hold on to power is by showing their people basically that they're powerful and trying to play themselves up as a country. However, their leadership is also rather cunning in the way they're led, in that they're not actually going to do something so extreme that they lose power. So
Okay.
in that, making any kind of aggression against South Korea would lead to a United States attack, obviously they would lose their lives and their power.
Okay, so you talked in your self-and-CEO point about how there's another system. When will LSAM be ready?
I'm not sure when LSAM will be ready. That really is irrelevant because it's South Korea's decision. If LSAM is ready in a few years, it's South Korea's decision whether they want to wait a few years and get that system versus getting the United States.
But you agree that South Korea is very concerned about the northern threat and is looking for defensive capabilities, correct?
I would say that they're weighing the options. I think
So they're weighing death versus defense?
They're weighing whether it's actually a risk, and we can see lots of evidence showing that it's probably not a risk.
Okay, but you'd agree that the South Korean spokespeople in the government have actually been very concerned about the North Korean threat, correct?
I mean, obviously they're concerned about the North Korean threat, but they're weighing how dangerous it is and what the best response is. They realize that getting United States support on this might just not be their best option, and we should respect that.
Okay, but once again, LSAM might not be ready for a few years.
And that's their choice, not the United States' choice.
Okay, but once again, in that time between when LSAM is ready and now, South Korea is defenseless, correct?
It's their defense. It's their defensive decision. I mean,
They're defenseless until then.
It's their defensive decision, their strategic decision.